October 31st, 1967. Ap Dong, Republic of Vietnam. 11:45 hours. Captain Riley Leroy Pitts moved through the jungle at the head of Company C, 2nd Battalion, 27th Infantry Regiment, 25th Infantry Division, listening to the sounds of the forest, watching for signs of enemy activity, leading 120 men through terrain that could hide an entire enemy battalion. He was 31 years old, from Fallis, Oklahoma, one of the few African-American company commanders in Vietnam, leading men who were black and white and Hispanic and Asian, men who followed him not because of his race but because of his leadership, his courage, his absolute refusal to ask his men to do anything he wouldn't do himself. He'd been in Vietnam for 8 months, had seen combat, had led his company through firefights and ambushes and search-and-destroy missions. He'd earned the respect of his men the hard way, by being first into danger, last to safety, by sharing every hardship, by never asking for anything he wasn't willing to give. His men trusted him, would follow him anywhere, would die for him if necessary. Today, some of them would. The mission was routine. Sweep through an area north of Ap Dong, check for enemy activity, engage if contact was made. Return to base by evening. Intelligence said the area might have some Viet Cong presence, but nothing significant, nothing that a full company couldn't handle. Standard operation, the kind of mission they'd run dozens of times. Intelligence was wrong. At 11:47 hours, the lead platoon walked into an ambush. The jungle erupted with automatic weapons fire, machine guns, AK-47s, RPGs, a wall of fire that came from 3 sides, from fortified positions that had been prepared for weeks, from an enemy force that wasn't a small VC patrol, but a full North Vietnamese Army battalion, over 400 soldiers, dug in, waiting, ready to destroy the American company. The lead platoon was caught in the kill zone, took casualties immediately, went to ground, tried to return fire but was pinned down, unable to move, unable to retreat, taking fire from multiple directions. Men were screaming, calling for medics, calling for help, dying. Pitts heard the firing, heard the volume, knew immediately that this wasn't a small contact, wasn't a patrol, was something much bigger, much more dangerous. He grabbed his radio handset, called for artillery support, called for air support, called for medevac, then grabbed his M16 rifle and started moving toward the sound of gunfire. His executive officer grabbed his arm. "Sir, we need to set up a command post. Coordinate the response." Pitts shook him off. "The command post is wherever I am. The men need leadership up front, not in the rear. Let's go." He ran toward the kill zone with his command group, his radio operator, his sergeant, his medic, moving through the jungle toward the heaviest fire, toward the place where his men were dying, toward the place where company commanders weren't supposed to go, but where Riley Pitts always went, because that's who he was. He reached the pinned-down platoon, found them taking fire from at least 3 fortified positions, bunkers with machine guns, creating overlapping fields of fire, a professional military defense that was designed to kill everyone in the kill zone. The platoon leader was wounded, the platoon sergeant was dead, the platoon was leaderless, disorganized, on the verge of breaking. Pitts took command immediately, started organizing the defense, directing fire, calling for artillery, trying to suppress the enemy positions long enough to evacuate the wounded and reorganize the company. But the enemy fire was too heavy, too accurate, too well coordinated. They were surrounded on 3 sides, taking casualties, running low on ammunition, and the NVA were preparing to assault, to overrun the position, to wipe out the entire company. Artillery support was 10 minutes out. Air support was 15 minutes out. Medevac couldn't land until the area was secured. They didn't have 10 minutes. They had maybe 5 minutes before the NVA assault began and everyone died. Pitts looked at the enemy positions, calculated distances, counted muzzle flashes, estimated enemy strength. 3 fortified bunkers, maybe 4, each with a machine gun, each with supporting infantry, probably 50 to 60 enemy soldiers in the immediate area, with more in reserve. To break the ambush, to save the company, those bunkers had to be destroyed. Someone had to assault them, had to charge through automatic fire, had to destroy them before the NVA could organize their assault. Pitts made his decision. He would assault the bunkers himself, would lead from the front, would show his men that the impossible could be done, that courage and leadership could overcome superior firepower, that an American company commander would never abandon his men, would never ask them to do something he wouldn't do first. He turned to his command group. "I'm going to assault the nearest bunker. When I suppress it, move the wounded back. Get them to cover. Organize the defense. Hold until artillery arrives." His sergeant stared at him. "Sir, that's suicide. You can't assault fortified positions alone." "I'm not asking for volunteers. I'm giving orders. Follow them." Pitts checked his M16, made sure he had a full magazine, grabbed 4 fragmentation grenades from his harness, took a breath. He was a company commander. His job was to command from a position where he could see the battlefield, where he could coordinate fire and maneuver, where he could make decisions. His job was not to personally assault enemy bunkers, but his men were dying, and leadership meant doing what needed to be done, regardless of doctrine, regardless of what the manual said, regardless of personal safety. He stood up and started running toward the nearest bunker. The bunker was 75 meters away, across open ground, through automatic weapons fire from 3 directions. He ran in a crouch, zigzagging, trying to make himself a difficult target, trying to close the distance before they could kill him. Rounds snapped past his head, kicked up dirt at his feet, hit trees around him. He kept running. At 50 meters, he raised his M16, fired a burst at the bunker's firing port, trying to suppress the machine gunner, trying to make him duck. The machine gun kept firing. Pitts kept running. At 30 meters, he pulled a grenade, pulled the pin, let the spoon fly, counted 2 seconds, threw it at the bunker. The grenade sailed through the air, landed in front of the firing port, exploded. The machine gun stopped firing for 3 seconds, then resumed. The bunker was damaged but not destroyed. Pitts kept running. At 20 meters, he threw his second grenade. Better throw, better placement. The grenade went through the firing port, exploded inside the bunker. The machine gun went silent. The bunker was neutralized. Behind him, his men were moving, evacuating wounded, repositioning, using the suppression of the first bunker to improve their position. But there were still 2 more bunkers firing, still enemy soldiers advancing, still the threat of being overrun. Pitts didn't stop. He turned toward the second bunker, 40 meters to his left, started running toward it. This bunker had seen him destroy the first one, was ready for him, the machine gunner tracking him, firing continuous bursts, trying to kill him before he could get close. Pitts ran through the fire, through the impossible wall of bullets, through what should have been certain death. He was hit, bullet through his left arm, spun him around, knocked him down. He got back up, switched his rifle to his right hand, kept running. The pain was distant, irrelevant, pushed aside by adrenaline and determination and the absolute need to destroy that bunker before his men died. At 30 meters, he threw his third grenade. The throw was awkward. Left-handed throw with his right hand because his left arm wasn't working, but it was accurate enough. The grenade landed near the bunker, exploded, didn't destroy the bunker, but suppressed the machine gun long enough for Pitts to close the distance. He reached the bunker, pressed himself against the sandbags, breathing hard, left arm useless, bleeding but still holding his rifle, still holding his last grenade. He could hear voices inside, Vietnamese voices, shouting, preparing to resume firing. He pulled his last grenade, stepped in front of the firing port, threw it inside, dove to the side. The machine gun fired, burst that missed him by inches, then the grenade exploded. The machine gun went silent. The second bunker was destroyed. Pitts lay on the ground, checking himself for wounds, found the bullet hole in his left arm, found another wound in his side that he didn't remember getting, found that he was bleeding from multiple places but was still alive, still functional, still able to fight. He stood up, looked for the third bunker. It was 60 meters away, to his right, still firing, still killing Americans, still operational. He'd used all his grenades. His left arm was useless. He was bleeding from at least 2 wounds. He had 1 rifle with maybe 20 rounds left in the magazine, and he was going to assault a fortified bunker with a machine gun. He started running toward the third bunker. His radio operator saw him, screamed into the radio, "The captain's hit! He's assaulting another bunker! Someone stop him!" But no one could stop him. He was too far forward, too committed, too focused on destroying that bunker to listen to reason or orders or the voice in his head that said this was suicide, that he'd already done more than anyone could ask, that he'd destroyed 2 bunkers and saved his company and could stop now. But stopping meant his men kept dying. Stopping meant that bunker kept firing. Stopping meant failure. Riley Pitts didn't know how to stop. He ran toward the third bunker through machine gun fire, through AK-47 fire, through RPG explosions, through hell. He was hit again. Bullet through his right leg, knocked him down. He got back up, limped forward, kept moving. The bunker was 40 meters away, 30 meters, 20 meters. He raised his M16, fired the rest of his magazine at the firing port, emptied the weapon, threw it aside. The machine gun kept firing. Pitts kept moving forward, unarmed now except for his knife, wounded, bleeding, dying, but still moving, still attacking, still refusing to let that bunker kill his men. At 10 meters, the machine gun found him. 3-round burst, center mass, knocked him down. He tried to get up, couldn't. His body wasn't responding. His legs wouldn't work. He tried to crawl forward, made it 2 feet, collapsed. Behind him, his men were assaulting now, inspired by his courage, following his example, charging the bunkers, throwing grenades, firing rifles, attacking with the fury of men who'd watched their commander sacrifice himself to save them. They destroyed the third bunker, destroyed the fourth bunker, broke the ambush, drove the NVA back, held the position. Medics reached Pitts, started working on him, tried to stop the bleeding, tried to stabilize him for medevac. He'd been hit 5 times, had lost massive amounts of blood, was in shock, was dying. But he was conscious, was trying to talk, was asking about his men. "How many?" he whispered to the medic. "Sir, don't talk. Save your strength." "How many casualties?" "Sir, please." "That's an order, soldier. How many?" The medic looked at him, saw that he needed to know, that he wouldn't rest until he knew. 8 KIA, 23 wounded, sir. But it would have been the whole company if you hadn't. Pitts nodded, closed his eyes. 8 dead, 23 wounded, 31 casualties. Too many. But it could have been 120. Could have been the entire company wiped out. His assault on those bunkers had broken the ambush, had given his men time to organize, to fight back, to survive. The medevac helicopter arrived 15 minutes later, landed under covering fire, loaded Pitts and the other critical casualties, flew toward the field hospital. The medical team worked on him during the flight, started IVs, tried to stabilize his blood pressure, tried to keep him alive. He died before they reached the hospital, bled out from multiple gunshot wounds, died doing what he'd always done, leading from the front, sacrificing himself to save his men, proving that leadership meant more than giving orders, meant showing the way, meant being willing to die so others could live. Captain Riley L. Pitts was 31 years old when he died. He'd been in the Army for 13 years, had risen from enlisted ranks to company commander, had earned the respect of every soldier he'd ever led. He left behind a wife and 2 children, left behind a company of soldiers who owed their lives to his courage, left behind a legacy that would inspire generations of soldiers. On December 10th, 1968, President Lyndon B. Johnson presented the Medal of Honor posthumously to Captain Riley L. Pitts. His widow, Eula Pitts, accepted the medal at the White House ceremony. Riley Pitts became the first African-American officer to receive the Medal of Honor for actions in the Vietnam War, breaking another barrier, proving that courage and leadership transcended race, that heroes came in all colors, that the content of a man's character mattered more than the color of his skin. The citation read, in part, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Captain Pitts distinguished himself by exceptional heroism while leading his company in an attack against a strongly fortified enemy force. Completely disregarding his safety, Captain Pitts single-handedly assaulted 4 enemy positions, destroying them with grenades and rifle fire. Although painfully wounded, he continued his attack until he was mortally wounded. His extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service. The award was historic, not just because of Pitts's actions, but because of what it represented. In 1967, the military was still dealing with racial tensions, still working through integration issues that had started in the 1940s, still proving that African-American soldiers could lead, could command, could earn the highest honors. Riley Pitts proved it. Proved that leadership had nothing to do with race and everything to do with courage, with character, with the willingness to sacrifice for your men. He wasn't the first African-American to receive the Medal of Honor. That honor belonged to soldiers from the Civil War, from World War I, from World War II, from Korea. But he was the first African-American officer to receive it in Vietnam, at a time when the civil rights movement was reshaping America, when questions about equality and opportunity were being answered on battlefields and in streets, when men like Riley Pitts were proving through their actions what should have been obvious from the beginning, that courage knows no color. His legacy lives on in multiple ways. The Army named a building at Fort Benning, Georgia, in his honor. Pitts Hall stands as a reminder of his sacrifice, of his leadership, of his courage. Every officer who graduates from Infantry Officer Basic course learns his story, learns about the company commander who assaulted 4 bunkers to save his men, who died leading from the front, who showed that leadership meant sacrifice. His name is engraved on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., panel 28E, line 84. One name among 58,000, but a name that represents something more than just one soldier's death. It represents the breaking of barriers, the proof of equality, the demonstration that heroism transcends race. The soldiers of Company C who survived that day never forgot him. They held reunions, told stories, made sure his children knew what their father had done, made sure the world remembered Captain Riley Pitts. They described him as a leader who cared about his men, who shared every hardship, who never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do first. They described the moment he stood up and charged those bunkers, how it inspired them, how it gave them courage, how it saved their lives. One soldier, interviewed years later, said, "Captain Pitts could have stayed back, could have coordinated from a safe position, could have sent someone else to assault those bunkers, but that wasn't who he was. He led from the front, always. He showed us what leadership looked like. He saved our lives by giving his own. I think about him every day. I owe him everything. That's the legacy. That's what Riley Pitts gave to his men, to the Army, to the nation. The example of leadership that costs everything, that demands sacrifice, that proves that the worth of a man is measured not by his words, but by his actions, not by his rank, but by his courage, not by his race, but by his character. On October 31st, 1967, a company commander from Oklahoma charged through automatic fire, assaulted 4 fortified positions, destroyed them one by one, was wounded multiple times, but kept fighting, kept attacking, kept leading until his body gave out, and he died saving his men. That was Riley L. Pitts. That was the man. That was the hero who proved that leadership means sacrifice, that courage means action, that the highest calling of a military officer is to protect the soldiers under his command, regardless of the cost. A captain, a leader, a hero. The first African-American officer to receive the Medal of Honor in Vietnam. A man who broke barriers, not by demanding recognition, but by earning it through courage and sacrifice and the absolute refusal to let his men die while he had breath in his body. His story is taught at West Point, at officer candidate schools, at leadership courses throughout the military. His example inspires new generations of officers, teaches them that leadership isn't about privilege or position. It's about responsibility and sacrifice and the willingness to die so others can live. Riley Leroy Pitts. A name that will never be forgotten. A hero who charged through impossible fire, who destroyed 4 enemy positions before falling, who saved his company by giving his life, who proved that the measure of a man has nothing to do with the color of his skin and everything to do with the courage in his heart. That was his gift to the army. That was his gift to the soldiers he saved. That was his gift to America, proof that equality isn't just an ideal, it's a reality earned through courage and sacrifice and the willingness to give everything for your brothers. Duty, honor, country, sacrifice. That was Riley Pitts. That was his life. That was his legacy. And that legacy will never die.